Zervith stood at the observation window of the Pacific Fleet Command Center, looking out at the vast darkness of space. The alien observer had traveled across the galaxy to witness what the Galactic Council believed would be a simple military engagement. Humans were young, the Council said. Humans were primitive by galactic standards. Humans would probably fail. The assignment was straightforward. Zervith would watch, document, and report back to the Council with honest assessments of human military power. No one at the Council expected much. Species that had only been in space for 200 years did not have the experience or technology to defeat enemies like the Vexthur. The Vexthur were brutal. The Vexthur were efficient. The Vexthur had never lost a single battle against a younger species. Captain Marcus Hayes approached Zervith with a calm expression. Hayes was a tall man with gray hair and dark eyes. He had commanded the Pacific Fleet for 5 years and had the respect of every soldier under him. He knew what Zervith represented. An observer from the Galactic Council meant doubt. It meant judgment. It meant the galaxy did not trust humans to fight their own battles. "We will begin operations at dawn," Hayes said to Zervith. His voice was steady and sure. 3 Vexthur dreadnoughts have been detected moving toward the colony on Kepler 22b. We will not wait for them to reach the colony. We will meet them in the asteroid field. Zervith studied the tactical display. 3 massive Vexthur warships, each one equipped with weapons that could destroy entire cities. 2 human destroyers and a collection of fighter craft. The math was clear. The humans were outgunned. Any rational species would retreat. Any logical commander would abandon the colony and save his ships. But Hayes did not seem worried. He stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the display with complete focus. There was no fear in his face. There was no doubt. There was only purpose. "You have studied the Vexthur?" Hayes asked Zervith. "I have reviewed Council records," Zervith replied. "The Vexthur have destroyed 12 younger species in direct combat. They have never retreated. They have never lost a battle." Hayes nodded slowly. "Then you understand the situation. We are about to engage an enemy that has never been defeated by a younger species. The Council probably thinks we will lose." "Yes," Zervith said honestly. There was no point in lying. "Then we will surprise them," Hayes said. He turned away from the window and looked directly at Zervith. "We have something the Vexthur do not understand. We have soldiers who will fight knowing they might die. We have sailors who will push their ships beyond normal limits. We have people who will sacrifice everything for the colony. The Vexthur fight because they are powerful. Humans fight because we must." Zervith recorded these words. They would sound foolish in the Council report. Technology was what mattered in space warfare. Firepower was what determined the winner. Determination and sacrifice were human concepts, not military strategy. The day passed slowly. Zervith moved through the command center, observing the preparations. Soldiers checked their weapons again and again. Engineers performed maintenance on the destroyers, looking for small problems that might cause major failures during combat. Pilots sat quietly, reading reports about the Vexthur ship designs, studying the asteroid field, preparing their minds for the battle. No one complained. No one expressed doubt. They simply worked and prepared and waited. At 2,000 hours, Captain Hayes called a meeting with his senior officers. Commander Lisa Grant would lead the 2 destroyers in direct combat against the Vexthur. She was a woman in her early 50s with a sharp mind and quick reflexes. She had fought in 3 previous conflicts and had never lost a single engagement. Lieutenant James Cooper would lead a strike team of 20 soldiers. Their job was to reach the Vexthur flagship and disable its weapon systems from the inside. This was an extremely dangerous assignment. Many of them would probably not survive. The Vexter will expect us to fight in traditional ways, Grant said to the assembled officers. They will expect us to attack head-on. They will be wrong. We will use the asteroid field against them. We will force them to fight in ways they do not understand. We will make them afraid. Cooper spoke next. His voice was quiet but firm. My team will board the flagship during the confusion of the space battle. We will move through the ship carefully. We will kill the guards. We will disable the weapon system. We will survive and escape. Anyone who believes differently should speak now. No one spoke. Every soldier in the room believed in the mission. Every soldier in the room was ready to die for the colony. At midnight, Zerveth sat with Captain Hayes in his quarters. The walls were covered with images of Hayes' family. A woman, 2 children. They were smiling in the photographs. They were alive on Earth, safe and far away from this battle. Do you have family? Hayes asked Zerveth. My species does not create family bonds in the way humans do, Zerveth said. We are raised collectively by the state. Hayes looked at the photographs for a long moment. That must be empty. Family gives you something to fight for. Family makes you understand what is really important. The colony has families, Zerveth said carefully. Yes, Hayes agreed. 60,000 people. 20,000 of them are children. If the Vexter reach that colony, those children will be dead or enslaved. That is why my soldiers will fight. Not because we are strong, not because we have good weapons, but because we cannot accept that outcome. Zerveth understood the words, but not the meaning. The Vexter would also protect their own young, but the Vexter would do it from a position of superior strength. Humans were protecting children while fighting an enemy they should not be able to defeat. As 0400 hours approached, the ships moved into position. The 2 destroyers would engage the Vexter directly, trying to damage them enough to slow them down. The fighter craft would support the destroyers. Cooper's strike team would launch from a hidden position, approaching the flagship through the asteroid field. Zerveth sat in the command center with recording devices active, capturing every moment. Captain Hayes stood motionless, watching the tactical display. His face was calm. His breathing was normal. He was ready. The radio crackled. Commander Grant's voice came through. All units are in position. Weapons are armed. We are ready to begin. Hayes looked at Zerveth. Watch carefully, he said. You will see something the Galactic Council has never seen before. You will see humans at war. At 0600 hours exactly, the battle began. Silent flashes of light exploded across the void. The Vexter dreadnoughts opened fire with overwhelming force. Plasma weapons created walls of energy. The asteroid field became a deadly place, and in the command center, Captain Marcus Hayes watched his soldiers rush toward the enemy without hesitation. Zerveth turned on all recording devices at maximum power. The observer realized in that moment that the Galactic Council had made a terrible mistake. The humans were not going to lose this battle. Something was wrong with everything the Council believed about species strength and military power. Zerveth did not know what it was yet, but the observer would find out. The battle for Kepler 22b was about to prove that youth and primitive technology meant nothing compared to the will to survive and protect your people. The battle exploded across the void with sudden and terrible violence. Plasma weapons from the Vexter dreadnoughts tore through space, creating waves of energy that would have destroyed any ship caught directly in their path. The 3 massive enemy vessels moved forward with complete confidence. They had destroyed 12 younger species in direct combat. This battle would be victory number 13. The human destroyers did not run. They did not attempt the normal defensive tactics that younger species used against superior firepower. Instead, they moved directly into the asteroid field with precise coordination. Commander Lisa Grant sat in the captain's chair of the destroyer, known as the Pacific Dawn. Her eyes moved across the tactical display, reading information faster than most beings could process it. She had studied this asteroid field for weeks. Her navigation team had mapped every rock, every gravity well, every possible path through the dense formation. All units maintain current course, Grant said into the communication system. Her voice was calm and steady. Around her, the crew of the Pacific Dawn moved with the efficiency of soldiers who had trained together for years. They knew their jobs. They knew what was required. They knew some of them would not survive the next hour. The Vexter dreadnoughts followed the human ships into the asteroid field. This was their first mistake. The field was dense and dangerous, full of rocks ranging from small boulders to massive stone formations the size of buildings. The Vexter ships were larger than the human destroyers. They were less maneuverable. They depended on their weapons and armor to win battles, not on speed and precision navigation. Lieutenant Paul Stevens commanded the second destroyer, the Pacific Guardian. He flew parallel to Grant's vessel, maintaining perfect distance and coordination. The two ships moved through the asteroid field like fish swimming through water, turning and twisting with graceful precision. "Enemy targeting systems are locking onto us," reported the weapons officer on the Pacific Dawn. "Let them lock," Grant said. "Helm, take us through the tight passage near asteroid cluster 7. Bring us around to intercept position 7 Alpha." The Pacific Dawn shuddered as enemy plasma fire passed directly overhead. The asteroid field protected the human ships from most of the incoming fire. The Vexter weapons were designed to strike wide-open targets at great distances. Here, in the crowded asteroid field, many of the Vexter shots struck rocks instead of ships. Grant made her first major move. She coordinated both destroyers to fire simultaneously from their hiding places within the asteroid field. The human weapons were smaller and less powerful than Vexter weapons, but there were many of them, and they were aimed at targets that could not effectively defend themselves. The lead Vexter dreadnought, called the Nexus Dominion, took critical damage to its weapons array. Explosions blossomed across the massive warship. The alien crew inside would be experiencing panic. Their targeting systems were damaged. Their firepower was reduced. They had believed this battle would be simple. "All units fire again," Grant commanded. "Target the damaged locations on the lead dreadnought. Push them away from the colony." The Pacific Dawn's weapons roared to life. Missiles launched in rapid succession. Plasma cannons fired with deadly accuracy. Every shot counted. Every shot was aimed at specific targets chosen by human strategists who had studied Vexter ship design extensively. The Nexus Dominion attempted to retreat. The Vexter captain, believing his firepower was still superior, decided that moving backward while continuing to fire was the correct tactic. The ship turned and began to accelerate away from the asteroid field. This was the moment Grant had been waiting for. "All fighter squadrons, launch now," she commanded. 30 human fighter craft exploded out of hidden positions throughout the asteroid field. They were small. They were fast. They had been piloted by soldiers trained since childhood in the art of aerospace combat. The pilots saw the retreating dreadnought and moved toward it with deadly purpose. Captain Richard Anderson led the fighter squadrons. His voice came through the communication channel, clear and focused. "All units, we have the wounded target. Attack its engines. Let's send this ship back to the void." The fighters moved with terrifying speed and precision. Missiles targeted the Vexter dreadnought's main engines. Plasma cannons concentrated fire on propulsion systems. The massive alien warship, wounded and losing power, suddenly became a vulnerable target. The Nexus Dominion's engines exploded. The dreadnought lost power and began to drift through space. The human fighters continued their assault, methodically destroying every weapon system still functional on the alien vessel. Zervath recorded everything. The alien observer watched as experienced human warriors transformed the battle between unequal opponents into something far different. The humans were not just fighting, they were winning. They were winning against enemies that should have been too strong to defeat. On the command deck of the Pacific Dawn, Commander Grant studied the tactical display. The second and third Vexter dreadnoughts had stopped their forward advance. They had seen what happened to their sister ship. They were, for the first time in recorded history, facing an enemy that had successfully wounded them. "Target the second dreadnought," Grant ordered. "Helm, take us around asteroid formation 9. We will attack from above their defensive perimeter." The Pacific Dawn moved with impossible grace for a vessel of its size. The human crew had trained for this exact maneuver 1,000 times. The ship cut through the asteroid field, coming around to a position where the second Vexter dreadnought could not effectively defend itself. The Pacific Guardian moved in from a different angle. The two human destroyers coordinated their attack with machine-like precision. Missiles and plasma fire ripped into the second dreadnought's hull. The Vexter were losing their advantage. For the first time in a millennium of warfare, they faced an enemy that was not only resisting but actively defeating them. The second dreadnought took heavy damage, and its weapon systems began to fail. The third Vexter ship, still relatively unharmed, made a decision. It would move forward instead of backward. It would close the distance to the human destroyers and attempt to destroy them with direct fire. This was another mistake. Grant had anticipated this response. She had studied Vexter battle tactics from council records. She understood the psychology of enemies who depended on overwhelming force. They became predictable when that force was not enough. "All units prepare for close engagement," Grant said. "The third dreadnought is moving to intercept. We will destroy it." The Pacific Guardian accelerated to meet the incoming Vexter ship. The two vessels rushed toward each other through the asteroid field, moving in a direction designed to force the much larger alien warship to navigate through the densest part of the rock formation. The Vexter dreadnought could not slow down. Its captain had committed to this attack. The ship had to move forward, had to close the distance, had to attempt to destroy the human destroyer. It was forced to move directly into the asteroid field's densest section. Rocks the size of buildings struck the Vexter ship's hull. The alien vessel, designed for open space warfare, was not built to withstand constant collisions with massive stones. The ship's structural integrity began to fail. Entire sections of the hull cracked and ruptured. At the same moment, Commander Grant's Pacific Dawn positioned itself for a devastating point-blank strike. When the Vexter dreadnought emerged from the densest asteroids, it found itself directly in front of the human destroyer. Close enough, the tactical retreat was impossible. The Pacific Dawn fired every weapon simultaneously. The massive burst of energy and explosive force struck the third Vexter dreadnought directly. The alien warship, already damaged and weakened by asteroid collisions, could not withstand the impact. The dreadnought exploded in a massive burst of light. In the command center, Zervath stood frozen. The observer had just witnessed something impossible. 3 Vexter dreadnoughts, undefeated in 1,000 years of warfare, were being systematically destroyed by a younger species with inferior weapons and technology. All 3 dreadnoughts were heavily damaged or destroyed. The human destroyers were still operational. The fire squadrons were still attacking. The battle was far from over, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. Humanity was winning. Commander Grant spoke into the communication system, her voice still calm and professional. "All units continue operations. The second dreadnought is attempting repairs. We will finish this battle now." The human warships moved forward to complete their victory. Zerveth realized in that moment that the Galactic Council had made a catastrophic error in judgment. They had underestimated not just humanity's strength, but the fundamental nature of human warfare. Deep within the Vexter flagship, alarms screamed continuously. The alien crew moved in controlled panic, attempting to understand how their superior warship was being defeated by inferior human weapons. The weapons officer reported that targeting systems were failing. The communications officer reported that contact with the other two dreadnoughts had been lost. The commander ordered all hands to defensive positions. No one knew that 20 human soldiers were already moving through the ship's corridors. Lieutenant James Cooper led his strike team through the darkness of the Vexter vessel with precise focus. The soldiers had spent weeks studying the internal layout of this ship class. They had memorized every corridor, every door, every location where guards would be positioned. Cooper's team was not large, but they were the most dangerous people in the galaxy right now. The first guard position appeared around the corner. 3 Vexter soldiers stood at a doorway, heavy weapons in their multiple arms. The aliens did not expect anyone to be inside their ship. They did not expect humans to be capable of such an operation. Officer Sarah Mitchell raised her weapon and fired. The sound was not loud, but it was deadly. The first Vexter guard fell before he could call for help. Cooper's team moved forward with practiced precision. 2 more guards fell in rapid succession. No alarms were triggered. No one knew the humans were here. Section 7 clear, Cooper said into his helmet communicator. Moving to checkpoint 2. The strike team advanced deeper into the Vexter flagship. Their movements were controlled and efficient. Every soldier knew their position in the formation. Every soldier understood what would happen if they made a mistake. They would die, and the colony would fall. 20 soldiers against a crew of 800 Vexter. But the humans had surprise. They had coordination. They had training that surpassed anything the Vexter expected from a younger species. A larger guard position appeared ahead. 8 Vexter soldiers with heavy weapons. This was a critical checkpoint. To reach the weapons control room, Cooper's team would have to fight their way past this position. Full assault, Cooper commanded. Deploy concussion charges. Officer David Carter threw 2 devices forward. They detonated with terrible force, but not lethal force. The concussion charges were designed to disrupt Vexter sensory systems, temporarily blinding them and destroying their ability to hear. The alien guards shrieked in confusion and pain. The human soldiers moved through them like ghosts. Cooper's knife blade, coated with Vexter neurotoxin, found the alien commander's neck. 3 other soldiers fell to rapid close combat strikes. The remaining guards never fired a single shot. 4 down, Mitchell reported. No human casualties. They continued forward. Each checkpoint brought new Vexter defenders. Each time, the humans moved with coordinated precision. They did not waste ammunition. They did not create unnecessary noise. They simply killed the guards and continued moving toward their objective. But the Vexter were beginning to understand that something was wrong. An alarm finally sounded. Red lights began flashing throughout the corridor. The element of surprise was gone. Move faster, Cooper said. Communications is trying to organize a response. We need to reach the control room before they can establish a defensive line. The strike team accelerated through the corridors. Behind them, Vexter soldiers began moving toward the sounds of combat. Ahead of them, a large group of alien guards was assembling near the weapons control room. Cooper saw the defensive position and made an instant calculation. His team could not fight through 20 armed Vexter guards and still have enough soldiers to complete the mission. They needed a different approach. Through the ventilation system, Cooper ordered. 3rd passage on the left. Move now. The team changed direction without hesitation. Officer Jennifer Davis unsealed a ventilation grate with explosive charges. The humans squeezed through the narrow passage, moving above the main corridor toward an alternate route to the control room. The Vexter guards below fired weapons at the grating, but the humans had already moved out of their line of fire. The aliens did not understand what had just happened. The human soldiers had simply disappeared. "Control room ventilation access in 30 seconds, Cooper said into his communicator. "Prepare for immediate assault." The team emerged from the ventilation system directly above the weapons control room. Cooper could see the target below, the main computer console where the Vexter controlled all weapon systems for the entire ship. The Vexter commander stood at the console with 12 guards. He was expecting an assault. He had positioned his forces to defend the room from any entry through the main doors. He was not expecting enemies to drop directly from above. Cooper's team fell through the opening like metal rain. Soldiers hit the ground and immediately engaged the guards. The Vexter commander recognized the assault and reached for the weapons console, attempting to trigger a shutdown of the human access network. He never completed the movement. Officer James Turner moved with the speed of a predator. His knife struck true, cutting off the commander's attempt to reach the console. The alien died without understanding how he had been defeated. The remaining guards fought with terrifying intensity. They were trained soldiers, experienced in combat. But they were not fighting humans like this. They were not fighting a species that evolved on a death world, a planet where survival meant fighting harder and smarter than any other species in 30 seconds. All 12 guards were dead. 13 of Cooper's 20 soldiers remained alive. Officer Patricia Sanders moved to the main console. She had studied this system design for weeks. Her fingers moved across the alien controls with confident precision. She began entering commands, uploading a virus that would disable the weapon systems permanently. "We have 5 minutes before they can restore manual control," Sanders said. "Then this console is useless." "Plant the charges," Cooper commanded. "We are destroying this room entirely." The strike team moved with organized chaos. Soldiers placed explosive devices throughout the weapons control room. They rigged the charges to destroy not just the computers, but the entire structural integrity of the room. When these charges detonated, no Vexter engineer would be able to repair the weapon systems quickly enough to change the outcome of the battle. Sanders completed her upload just as footsteps began to approach from the hallway. Vexter soldiers were converging on the weapons control room. There were too many of them to fight directly. "Seal the entrance," Cooper ordered. "Deploy the remaining charges." Officer Eric Harrison and 2 other soldiers positioned themselves at the main doorway. They were not trying to hold the line. They were trying to buy enough time for the rest of the team to escape. They knew this was a suicide mission. Sanders triggered the charges. A secondary explosion ripped through the weapons control room, destroying everything of value. The main doorway collapsed just as the first Vexter soldiers reached it. The collapse killed them instantly and sealed the entrance. Harrison and his 2 companions were buried in the rubble. They had given their lives so that the other 17 soldiers could escape. "Fall back to extraction point," Cooper said. His voice did not change, but Zerveth, monitoring the communications, could detect something beneath the professional tone. Grief, respect, acknowledgement of sacrifice. The remaining strike team moved rapidly through the corridors. The weapon systems of the Vexter flagship were no longer functional. The ship was now vulnerable to any attack. The human soldiers had changed the outcome of the entire battle, but the cost had been 3 soldiers. 3 humans who would never see their families again. 3 people who had given everything so that a colony of 60,000 could live. As Cooper's team approached the extraction point, he looked back at the damaged corridor. In his mind, he honored Harrison and his companions. They had not fought for medals or recognition. They had fought so that innocent people could live. The shuttles were waiting. The strike team boarded and prepared to launch. The Vexter flagship was dying now, its weapons offline, its structure compromised by the weapons control room explosion. Above, in the space battle, Commander Grant continued her assault on the remaining Vexter dreadnoughts. The battle was becoming less a conflict and more a slaughter. But it was a necessary slaughter, because the alternative was unacceptable. By hour 3 of the engagement, the space battle had transformed into something that no military strategist in the galaxy could have predicted. The Vexter were not retreating. They were not attempting to disengage. They were fighting with the desperation of species that understood. They were being systematically destroyed. Commander. Lisa Grant watched the tactical display in the command center of the Pacific Dawn. Her eyes tracked every movement, every explosion, every human ship and alien vessel. The 3 Vexter dreadnoughts were heavily damaged or destroyed. The human destroyers still had full combat capability. The fighter squadrons were continuing their assault on the 2nd dreadnought, the only remaining Vexter warship with functional weapon systems. Status report, Grant commanded. Pacific Guardian has sustained moderate damage to the port side, reported her weapons officer. Shields are holding at 70%. The 2nd Vexter dreadnought is moving to intercept us. Maintain course, Grant said. Prepare for the evasive maneuver we discussed. Take us deeper into the asteroid field. The Pacific Dawn accelerated toward the densest concentration of asteroids. The Vexter dreadnought followed, moving with the momentum of a massive predator that did not understand how to hunt in confined spaces. The alien ship was designed for open space warfare, where superior firepower and armor could overcome any opposition. Here, in the asteroid field, those advantages meant nothing. A massive asteroid the size of a small moon blocked the path. The Pacific Dawn cut to starboard with precision navigation. The Vexter dreadnought had to choose between slowing down or attempting to navigate around the obstacle. The alien commander chose to accelerate. The dreadnought struck the asteroid at tremendous velocity. The impact was catastrophic. Entire sections of the alien ship's hull ruptured. Internal explosions cascaded through the vessel. The crew that was not killed instantly experienced sudden decompression. Their bodies scattered into the void. Zerveth recorded this moment. The observer realized that humans did not just fight with weapons and tactics. Humans fought by understanding their environment. They used the asteroid field as a weapon. They forced their enemies into positions where the Vexter's superior technology meant nothing. The dreadnought has sustained catastrophic damage to the starboard section, the sensors officer reported. Weapon systems are coming offline. They are attempting to retreat. Do not let them escape, Grant said. It was not a suggestion. It was a command from a warrior who understood that a wounded enemy that escaped would become a threat to the colony. The Pacific Guardian maneuvered to intercept the damaged Vexter dreadnought. Commander Stephen Johnson ordered his weapons to concentrate fire on the alien ship's engines. Every missile, every plasma burst, every concentrated attack was designed to prevent the dreadnought from escaping. The Vexter ship slowed but did not stop. The alien crew, despite catastrophic damage, continued attempting to retreat. They fired their remaining weapons in desperation, trying to create enough space to activate their jump drive and escape the system. Grant made the decision that would determine the outcome of the battle. She ordered the Pacific Guardian to move directly into the path of the retreating dreadnought, blocking any possibility of escape. Commander Johnson understood what this order meant. It meant the Pacific Guardian would sustain heavy damage. It meant some of his crew would die. It meant risking everything to ensure that the Vexter could not reach the colony. All hands brace for impact, Johnson commanded. His voice was steady and professional. We are moving to intercept the enemy vessel. Anyone who survives the next 30 seconds is a lucky man or woman. The Pacific Guardian moved directly into the path of the massive Vexthor dreadnought. The alien ship had no choice but to slow down or collide with the human destroyer. The Vexthor commander chose to attempt a collision at reduced speed, believing the Pacific Guardian would be destroyed and his ship would continue forward. The impact was tremendous. The Pacific Guardian shuddered as the much larger Vexthor dreadnought struck its forward hull. Human sailors were thrown across deck plates. Some died instantly from the impact. Others were crushed in the collapsing metal of the ship's structure. But the Pacific Guardian did not stop. The human destroyer's engines, designed for exactly this type of aggressive engagement, pushed back against the Vexthor dreadnought. The two ships locked together in a terrible embrace. All units, fire concentrated volleys. Grant commanded from the Pacific Dawn. Destroy the dreadnought now. The Pacific Dawn and the fighter squadrons unleashed everything they had on the Vexthor ship. At close range, with the alien vessel locked in place by the Pacific Guardian, there was nowhere for the dreadnought to maneuver. Explosions blossomed across the alien warship's hull dot inside the Pacific Guardian. Commander Johnson's crew fought for survival. The alien ship was larger and heavier. Slowly, the Vexthor dreadnought was pushing the human destroyer backward toward the asteroid field. If the Pacific Guardian was forced into those rocks at this speed, it would be destroyed. Johnson knew this. He also knew his ship had to hold position long enough for the other human vessels to destroy the dreadnought. He ordered the Pacific Guardian to increase engine thrust to maximum. The strain on the ship's structure was enormous. Metal began to crack. Fires erupted in the engine room dot, but the human destroyer held its position. The Vexthor dreadnought could not withstand the concentrated assault. Weapon systems exploded in cascade failures. The main engines ruptured. The alien ship's structural integrity failed in multiple sections. Simultaneously, the dreadnought died. A massive explosion ripped through the Vexthor warship, destroying it completely. The blast wave struck the Pacific Guardian, pushing the human destroyer away from the dying alien vessel. The impact should have been fatal to the damaged human ship, but the Pacific Guardian had been built by humans who understood that sometimes you had to survive the UNSURVIVABLE. The destroyers. Emergency systems activated. The damaged sections were sealed off to prevent further decompression. The engines, though crippled, managed to stabilize the ship. Commander Johnson, covered in blood and burns from the impacts and explosions, ordered a damage assessment. Battle stations remain manned, Johnson commanded, his voice hoarse but still commanding. Report on all systems. Port side is destroyed, reported the damage control officer. We have sustained loss of life estimated at 200 sailors. But we are operational. We can still fight. Johnson looked at his remaining crew. They were exhausted. They were bleeding. They had lost friends and companions. But they were still ready to fight. Then we fight, Johnson said, in the command center of the Pacific Fleet. Captain Marcus Hayes watched the battle's conclusion. 2 Vexthor dreadnoughts were now confirmed destroyed. The third was heavily damaged and retreating at reduced velocity. The human destroyers, though damaged, remained fully operational. It had taken 3 hours of intense combat. Nearly 400 human sailors and soldiers were dead. But the colony was safe. The Vexthor threat was defeated. All units cease aggressive pursuit of enemy vessels, Hayes commanded. Maintain defensive positions. Begin recovery operations for damaged ships. Zervath, the Galactic Council observer, realized in that moment that everything the Council believed about warfare was incorrect. Humans did not win because they had superior technology. Humans won because they were willing to sacrifice themselves and their comrades for something larger than survival. The Vexthor fought because they were powerful. Humans fought because they had to. And in this battle, the difference between those two motivations had changed the galaxy forever. The undefeated Vexter had been defeated. A younger species had destroyed a power that had dominated the galaxy for 1,000 years. The Galactic Council's fundamental assumption about the hierarchy of species power had been destroyed as completely as the Vexter dreadnoughts. The aftermath of the battle was a strange mixture of victory and grief. The human fleet moved through the asteroid field, collecting wounded soldiers and sailors from damaged ships. Recovery teams worked constantly to save those who could be saved. Medical personnel treated injuries and attempted to ease the suffering of those who could not be treated. Captain Marcus Hayes stood on the bridge of the Pacific Fleet Command Center, watching the recovery operations. His gray hair was wet with sweat and dust from the battle. His uniform was torn and stained with blood that was not his own. He had not left the bridge for the entire duration of the engagement. While his soldiers and sailors had fought and died, he had remained in command, directing the battle with the precision of a chess master moving pieces across a board. Except these pieces were human lives, and nearly 400 of them had been lost. Hayes knew that the cost of victory would be significant. The colony had been saved. The Vexter threat had been eliminated. But the human cost was high. 400 dead sailors and soldiers. More than 200 additional injured. Ships that would require months of repairs to become fully operational again. Zervith approached the captain in his quarters later that night. Hayes was sitting at a table, reviewing lists of the dead. For each person listed, there was a name, a rank, and information about their family. Some left behind spouses. Some left behind children. Some left behind elderly parents who would now have to live their remaining years without their children. "You look at the names of the dead," Zervith said. It was not a question. Hayes did not look up from the list. "I look at the names because each one represents a person who will not go home. Each name is a life that ended because I made the decision to engage the Vexter instead of retreating." "You saved the colony," Zervith said. 60,000 people live because you made that choice." "Yes," Hayes agreed. "But 400 others died. Was the exchange worth it?" "I do not know. I will never know the answer to that question." Zervith felt something it had never experienced before. The alien observer was beginning to understand the weight of command, the burden of making decisions that meant choosing whose lives were worth more. "The Galactic Council will want to know everything about this battle," Zervith said. "They will want to understand how a younger species defeated the Vexter." Hayes finally looked up from the list of names. "You can tell them that we won because we had to. The colony has 60,000 people, including 20,000 children. If the Vexter had reached that colony, the children would have been dead or enslaved. That is the truth that the Council needs to understand. The Council believes that species strength is determined by technology and military hardware," Zervith said carefully. "They will find your explanation inadequate. Then they will learn something today," Hayes replied. "Strength is determined by what you are willing to sacrifice for. The Vexter are strong because they are superior in weapons and numbers. Humans are strong because we are willing to die for things we believe in. That is a different kind of strength. It is a stronger kind of strength." Hayes stood and walked to the observation window. The space beyond was now quiet. The battle was over. The dead had been collected. The living were recovering. "I have been commanding military forces for 35 years, Hayes said. "I have studied every major conflict in recorded history. The Vexter believed that superior technology would guarantee victory. They believed that their weapons and armor would overcome any opposition. They did not understand the one thing that matters in warfare." "What is that one thing?" Zervith asked. "The willingness to continue fighting after you should have already died," Hayes said. The humans who fought today believed that the alternative to victory was unacceptable. That belief gave them strength that exceeded their weapons. That belief made them dangerous in ways the Vexter could not comprehend. Commander Lisa Grant was recovering in the medical bay. She had sustained burns and shrapnel wounds during the space battle. The doctors had treated her injuries, but recovery would take weeks. She was resting when Captain Hayes visited her. "How are you recovering?" Hayes asked. Grant attempted to sit up straighter, but Hayes gestured for her to remain lying down. "I am uncomfortable, but alive. That is better than many of my crew." "You performed exceptionally," Hayes said. "Your tactical decisions saved more lives than were lost." "We saved the colony," Grant said. "That is what matters. Everything else is secondary." They sat in silence for a moment. Both understood something that the Galactic Council would struggle to understand. The victory was not about proving human superiority. The victory was about protecting something precious. In the communication center, Zerveth began to prepare the report for the Galactic Council. The alien observer knew that the words needed to convey the magnitude of what had occurred. This was not simply a military victory. This was a moment where the entire structure of galactic power had shifted. The report began with facts. 3 Vexter dreadnoughts destroyed. Nearly 400 Vexter soldiers killed. The weapon systems of the flagship disabled from within by a human strike team. The asteroid field used as a strategic weapon. The human destroyers demonstrating tactical capabilities that exceeded Vexter expectations. But Zerveth knew that facts alone would not be enough. The Council needed to understand the fundamental truth that had been revealed in this battle. Lieutenant James Cooper recovered from his wounds in a different section of the medical bay. He had sustained injuries during the boarding action on the Vexter flagship. 17 of his 20 soldiers had survived the operation. 3 had died so that the others could complete the mission. Cooper sat quietly, thinking about Officer Patricia Sanders, Officer Eric Harrison, and Officer Michael Torres. They had known that their actions would be dangerous. They had known that survival might not be possible. They had done it anyway, because the colony needed them to do it. That was what the Galactic Council failed to understand. Humans did not calculate risk in the way other species did. A human soldier could understand that they had only a 50% chance of surviving a mission, and they would still volunteer for that mission if the cause was important enough. The Vexter fought because they were strong. Humans fought because something mattered more than their individual survival. When Zerveth completed the report, the alien observer included one final section. This section detailed not the facts of the battle, but the psychological and philosophical implications of what had occurred. The Vexter have dominated galactic warfare for 1,000 years because of superior technology and overwhelming firepower. Humans have defeated the Vexter through superior coordination, tactical flexibility, and willingness to accept casualty rates that would force other species to retreat. The fundamental nature of human strength is different from other species. It is not based on individual capability, but on collective willingness to sacrifice. This makes humans potentially more dangerous than any species the Council has previously encountered, because humans will continue fighting even when all logic suggests retreat is the only rational choice. The Vexter did not understand this. The Vexter believed that superior technology would overcome any opposition. The Vexter were wrong. This is the lesson the Galactic Council must learn. Zerveth sent the report to the Council with appropriate documentation and evidence. The response from the Council came within hours. The Council wanted more information. The Council wanted analysis. The Council wanted clarification. But most importantly, the Council wanted to understand how to deal with a species that did not follow the predictable patterns of rational military behavior. Captain Marcus Hayes was summoned to meet. with the Galactic Council representatives via communication system. The meeting occurred one day after the battle ended. Hayes appeared on the communication screen, his uniform cleaned, but his weariness evident in his face. "Captain Hayes," the council leader said, "you have achieved something unprecedented. You have defeated the Vexter in direct combat. The council would like to know how you accomplished this feat." Hayes considered the question carefully. "We prepared," he said finally. "We studied the Vexter. We trained extensively. We developed tactics that exploited their weaknesses. We also understood that victory was necessary. There was no alternative. The colony had to be protected. That understanding gave my soldiers the strength to continue fighting even when the situation seemed impossible." "But your forces were heavily outnumbered," the council leader said. "Your technology is inferior to Vexter technology. By all logical analysis, you should have been defeated." "By your logical analysis," Hayes corrected. "Not by ours. We never believed that defeat was inevitable. We believed that if we fought correctly, if we understood our enemy, if we were willing to sacrifice everything, then victory was possible." And it was. The council members fell silent. They were beginning to understand what Zervith had already learned. The galaxy had entered a new era. A new power had emerged. A species that did not follow the rules that had governed warfare for thousands of years. The Vexter had been the undefeated masters of galactic combat. Humans had defeated them. Everything had changed. Zerveth returned to the Galactic Council as its representative to humanity.